Lately, I've been having this feeling that I can only describe as kind of primal to be more creative, to get to my true creative roots that existed before I had access to the technology that most of us use today to do our creative work, our phones, our tablets, and our computers. And it's that thought that led me to pick up this book called Boredom Brilliant. It's written by Manoush Zomorodi, who is a radio and podcast host who wanted to study the way that technology affects our creativity and problem-solving skills. So this book is essentially a report on this experiment that she did with her radio audience, where she gave them 7 different exercises to shift their relationship with their devices and see if it might open up space in their brains. Within the first chapter, I immediately connected with this concept of never being bored. I got my first iPhone in 2008. My husband actually gave it to me as a wedding gift, and I often joke that it was like the best day of my life, not because we got married, but because I was now in possession of this coveted iPhone. Ever since I've had that phone, I have never been bored because there's always something new to explore. There's always something new to look up, a person to communicate with, a game to play, songs to listen to, a video to watch. I think that we as individuals have specific things that we use our phones for that are kind of defense mechanisms against boredom. And a big portion of this book was dedicated to the effect that gaming has on our brains and the amount of time and energy and attention that it takes from us. I listened to the audio version of this book, which I absolutely recommend, especially because Manoush is a podcaster and a radio host. So she's a great speaker, great storyteller. And I don't know if this portion only is part of the audio experience, but in the middle of the book, she shares an interview with a game designer, one of the people who worked on this game called Two Dots, which was Manoush's go-to game / distraction / boredom antidote. So even though I don't really use my phone much for gaming, I found that part of the audiobook the most intriguing, to kind of get to hear from really a creative mind's perspective on what goes into creating a game and the elements that are included to keep the user engaged. So while gaming was Manoush's vice, for a lot of you, your vice might be this. It might be watching videos on YouTube, or a lot of people that I'm close with, their answer would probably be social media. But I would say for myself, the number one thing that keeps me from being bored and that's connected to my devices is audio content. Between music, podcasts, and audiobooks, I have my AirPods in like all the time. It drives my husband nuts. He's having conversations with me and I'm not even aware that he's speaking to me. So when I got to the part of the book where Manoush was talking about one of these challenges, which was to delete the app or apps from your phone, the one that would be most difficult for you to delete, I immediately thought of my podcast app. I thought, I don't think that I could survive a day without this. If someone said to you, you have to delete all of the apps off your phone, but you can keep one, what would be the last app that you would delete from your phone? Because I feel like that's probably your answer as to the one that you probably need to take a little bit of a break from. Now feels like the right time to tell you that I did not delete my podcast app, nor did I participate in any of the 7 challenges that are presented in this book, but it doesn't mean that hearing about them and hearing about the accounts of the people who did participate in the challenges didn't impact me or my thoughts and behaviors around my phone. One of the things that really shifted my thinking was hearing about Manoush's findings from having conversations with neuroscientists. It really helped me understand what's happening inside of our brains when we're taking actions like shifting from one task to another and then shifting back to it, or being on an app for 5 seconds and then having a notification pop up and switching. All of this overstimulation and multitasking is overtaxing our brains. They're working overtime. And she didn't get deep into this, but one neuroscientist implied that this overtaxation may lead to something like dementia. And I think that because our access to technology is still kind of a new thing. Like I said, I got my iPhone in 2008, so it's really only been 15 years for some of us, even less than that. It's still too soon to really know like how damaging our phone and technology use may end up being to us in the long term. So that really kind of made me stop in my tracks, and it makes total sense that this is not the way our brains were created and not the way that they were wired to consume, but not just consume, but in the way that we are consuming. So with that in mind, I thought, I know that I want to put these lessons into practice, but I kind of want to do it in my way. And I felt like I needed to get a firmer grasp on what the short-term benefits would be. I mean, I kind of had this in my head now that, okay, doing this could end up causing like long-term damage for my brain and memory health. But I think the reason that I didn't want to do any of these challenges to begin with is because I knew that I probably wouldn't stick with it if I didn't feel like I was seeing any kind of positive impact right away. So I'm here to challenge you with that same question that I asked myself. I mean, you clicked on this video for a reason. This topic intrigued you. Why did it intrigue you? I started this video by sharing that lately I've been feeling called to do things more creatively that don't involve technology. So that's what piqued my interest. So that is what I want to lean into as I design and develop my own little challenge. So think about why you want to explore this topic, what changes you want to make, and why you want to make them. So for me, I went back to the original reason why I picked up this book, and that is because I want to explore my creativity to the fullest. But this is where it gets kind of tricky because there is so much inspiration that I get from going on my devices. Anytime I listen to a podcast, inevitably a new idea pops into my head. Or when I'm on Instagram or Pinterest and I see something beautiful, that often sparks an idea. But after thinking about it, I kind of equate this to like shaking up a soda bottle where there are all these bubbles and fizz and sweetness swirling around. But if you don't take the cap off, all of that wonderfulness has nowhere to go. And I think that that's what I'm doing to myself. I am overstuffing my brain with so much information, so much stimulation, and we can even say an overabundance of creativity, but I'm not giving it space to play. I'm not giving it the chance to come out because it is all input and not nearly enough output. Some of you watching this might be shaking your head and thinking like, Michelle, I watch your videos all the time. I listen to your podcast. I read your blog posts and look at your Instagram, and it looks like you're doing creative things all the time. But for any of us who do creative things in our work, there's a fine balance between work, which is, don't get me wrong, I love doing this, and this is very creatively fulfilling to me, but doing creative exercises and having fun and allowing yourself to be truly expressive without anyone looking over your shoulder or feeling like you need to share it with anyone, it's a different thing. And that is the thing that I'm not doing. And this may be you too. You may already be doing plenty of creative things, but are you doing it in a way that's allowing you to express yourself to the fullest? So with that understanding, what I am feeling called to do, my Boredom Brilliant challenge, is to find more pockets of time for silence. I identified 3 things that I do, 3 little pockets of time where I feel like I can implement long stretches of time where I have no input coming into my brain, where I'm giving my mind a chance to run free. So the first one of these is kind of a cheat. This is something that I think a lot of us do, though I have been so tempted to get some kind of Bluetooth speaker system. But the first is the shower. So that's an easy one. I think it's such a cliche to say, oh, I get all my most brilliant ideas in the shower. I mean, this book is the perfect explanation as to why that happens. The second, I just experimented with this yesterday, and it is time alone in the car. This is also a little bit of a layup for me because I'm not putting myself on the hook for like long road trips. I'm not putting myself on the hook for this for when I'm in the car with my husband or with, family, friends, other passengers. But when it's just me and I'm driving locally and running errands, popping in and out of places, I'm going to attempt to not play the radio, not play a podcast, and not play an audiobook, and just drive the car and focus on what's around me and see what happens. The last is meal times. I have already been trying to be better about this, especially in group meal settings, going out to dinner, keeping my phone in my bag, not taking pictures of my meal. And I've also been trying to do this when my husband and I are sharing meals together, just during, at regular meals during the week, actually listening to what he's saying and prioritizing our conversation over whatever it is that's going on my phone. And I am even trying to hold myself to this during meals in which I eat alone. And for me, that is quite regular during the week. A lot of times, this may not be the healthiest thing, but I'll eat my breakfast at my desk or outside on our porch. But often when I'm doing that, even if I'm not on my phone, I'm doing something like reading a magazine or listening to something. So my new attempt is going to be mindful of those meal times, to just focus on enjoying the food, enjoying the atmosphere, enjoying the conversation, and just not letting my phone be part of that experience. There's already so much stimulation going on. I don't think that I need any more input into that situation. So, that part of my challenge may seem pretty tame, but I think it's a good starting point, at least for me. So if you're thinking about doing a challenge like this where you are blocking yourself off from something that you typically do, I mean, this is really like a digital detox or a diet in a sense. Everyone is different. But for me, when I think about these kind of like binge diets where like you don't eat sugar for like a month, they feel too extreme to me. And it feels like the kind of thing that even if I do it, I'm going to just bounce back immediately. So I recommend for you, if you're like me, start small, start with something easy and something that feels right to you and makes sense to you. Otherwise, you're not going to have any motivation to do it. But I'm including a second part in my challenge. I don't want it to just be about what I'm taking away from myself. I also want it to be about bringing in something new and in a positive way. So for this part of my challenge, I am really leaning into those initial urges to open myself up and open my brain up to creativity. And I want to be more intentional about doing creative projects that are away from my computer, away from my phone, and away from my devices. Before I read Boredom Brilliant recently, I shared a video about some of the activities that I have been exploring and engaging in that are creative in nature and that don't have anything to do with technology. But I feel like I could really still use some help in this area and even opening up my mind to what the possibilities are outside of doing something like doing watercolor, going out for a walk. If you, dear audience, would be so kind, share your ideas with me, with all of us, in the comments below. What kind of activities do you like to engage in that don't have anything to do with your phone or your computer or your tablet, that make you feel like you're in that creative flow? Boredom Brilliant is a great book and a great motivator to really start taking this thought seriously about spending less time with technology and more time with our creative thoughts and ideas. But whether you read the book or not, I encourage you to cultivate your own Boredom Brilliant experience. Free up space in your beautiful creative mind and allow it to run free. If you're looking for more inspiration to get those wheels spinning, here's that video that I mentioned where I share some of my ideas for creative activities that are away from the computer. And before you head out, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe. Don't forget to leave a comment with your best creative activities. And until we meet again, get out there and make something beautiful.